Action and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 153, unless I'm completely mistaken. I guess it is.
Or is it 4?
So I guess it's I updated that 153. I guess we're in the right scale. I think so. Yes, it is.
So
it is.
Just testing it. There you go.
It is 14th of February 2022. And my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a program manager in the Microsoft 365 platform areas of the house. And with me as a co-host is Waldek. Who are you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz, and I am Cloud Developer Advocate for Microsoft 365 at Microsoft.
Excellent. So PnP Weekly is a weekly show where we go through the latest announcements from the Microsoft. Well, we don't go all of them, but we go through a selected set of announcements from Microsoft and then also from the community, and focused on community posts and videos and those which have been tagged with the PnP Weekly, so we know that they exist because there's so much good stuff available. We also have a to be clear visitor. Today's visitor is Suta Narayan, and she's going to join us to have a discussion on her career inside of Microsoft. So she's a Senior Program Manager in and focusing on Power Platform integration in OneDrive and SharePoint. So really cool discussion, and looking forward on that. Which I guess is where we're jumping next, and then we'll go through the articles and what's happening right after that interview. So let's jump on the interview with Suta. Thank you, Suta, for joining us on Monday morning your time, Monday evening our time, for a quick discussion. Immediately, let's start by having you to do a quick intro. Who are you and what do you actually do?
Thank you for having me. 154th episode, which is like 3 years. Yep. Crazy. Doing anything for 3 years straight is crazy, but this is awesome. Thanks for having me. I am a PM on the SharePoint team, OneDrive and SharePoint, working specifically on automations and visualizations on SharePoint lists, libraries, and pages, etc., which means that integrations or features which require integrations with the Power Platform, bringing in Power Automate, Power Apps, all of those capabilities into SharePoint, but also some inbuilt features which could drive automations for our IWs and people who don't necessarily need to create a whole entire flow to create whatever business process they want and so on. So I'm a PM looking into the new features into that. I don't know if I can play the new card anymore. I've been here for 4 months. So yeah, not so new, but yeah, almost new. Yeah, and it's crazy. I was just thinking yesterday that it's almost going to be 3 years in Microsoft, and it does not feel so at all, because 2 of those years has been completely in the pandemic, and all of us feel like, not necessarily connected to the office and whatnot. But I've also made like a transition in those 3 years from IDC Microsoft to India Microsoft to Redmond Microsoft and so on. So yeah, I've been with Microsoft for almost 3 years this May, and I started off with Azure DevOps as a product manager again, and there were a few changes going on within the team and so on. So I think about 6 months into the role, I was looking for something else, and that's how I stumbled upon ODSP. I had this awesome opportunity of working in Viva Topics and SharePoint Syntax. At that time, it was called Project Cortex, for those of you who might know that name. But yeah, Viva Topics, I was responsible for building the components, which brings the topics experiences into all the M365 apps. So the topic card into like Teams and Yammer and Word and all of those things, and a few other experiences as well. So that was my role in Viva Topics. It's an ongoing mission that the team's continuing to move forward, which I'm cheering from the sidelines. And then there is, I was also working on SharePoint Syntax as a PM, working specifically on something called Content Assembly, which was launched last month.
Yeah, that went live pretty recently. Yep.
Yes. So
finally.
For those of you, yes, finally. For those of you who have Syntax, want to check it out, go check it out. It's super cool. I'm super excited about it. But that's my role within Microsoft as a PM. Of course, I've had like a history before that and whatnot, but yeah, this is my role right now.
Cool. Really good. Now, before we go to your Microsoft role a bit more detailed, can you talk about how did you get to Microsoft? For those who might be interested on, how would I actually get to? So what is required, or how does it work?
Yeah, I think it requires a little bit of history of my life, I guess. But I was a computer science engineer, graduated my bachelor's and joined another MNC company in India. I'm from Bangalore in India, joined as a software developer. And very soon, people around me noticed that I ask a lot of questions, and wasn't great to be like a software engineer at that point. I don't endorse that view, but whatever. So I used to ask, why are we doing this? Why aren't we doing this? How is this built? Like, why shouldn't we building this instead? And isn't that more optimal and whatnot? So very soon I realized that I love talking to the customers, talking to business and sales folks and gathering insights, and then saying that, even as a software engineer, saying that this isn't what we should be building. This is what we should be building and whatnot. So I moved almost organically. I had amazing leadership team in my previous org, and I just kept telling them that I want to be more customer facing. I want to ask more whys and define what we should do and all of that. So I moved sort of into a business analyst role where I could shadow like PMs on the team and so on. And I was sitting in India, and the org was structured such that you didn't necessarily have PMs in India. It was almost like a development site, and PMs were sitting either in the US or some other part of the globe where they could interact with customers more. So it took a lot of staying up late and attending calls that you didn't really have to attend for my role and whatnot. So did all of that, got into a business analyst role. That actually helped me build a relationship with a lot of our customers and partners, ISVs and so on. And there was a workshop which just so happened in India. And they said, hey, do you want to come? Like, again, I had an awesome mentor. My director said, do you want to come? And I did go to, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Business trips, pay, and I get to learn. This is great. So I'm going. So I did. And there was a problem that they were discussing. And just because I knew like the technical part of what we have in the database and what type of data and insights we can derive out of it and so on, I put up my hand and I was like this kid in the room saying, I think I can solve this problem for you. And my director was like, are you sure? Are you sure you can do that? And they were talking about this big, whatever, problems for all of our partners and whatnot. So it's like, yeah, I think I can give it a shot. So I got myself and an intern that I was mentoring. I was myself very early in the career, but like I had an intern who believed in me and said, do you want to be my mentor? So I was mentoring him and whatnot. So it was me and the intern working on this prototype of a product, and for solving, providing insights around sales and customer data and whatnot for the company that I was working on. So that just became a hit. That prototype became a hit, and we got funding. At that point, we get funding from business. So we got funding, and that team grew from just me and the intern to like 20 people. And that's what led me. That led me to move from India to San Francisco. This is my first trip, across the pond and relocating to another country and whatnot. So I did that just because we had to put together a team there as well. The team in the org just worked that it was 24/7. You had someone in India, you had someone in the US, you had someone in Europe, taking care of it and whatnot. So it's putting together a team there in the US. All of this, my title still said software engineer. That's what it was. But then I'd organically moved into this business analyst role and then into a product management role within the organization. And eventually it did change completely into a product management role. It went from, hey, bring coffee, code, do QA testing, do our architectural design of the product, to, hey, focus on talking to business, which was awesome. And then when I got to do that is when I realized that this is my calling. product management is what I wanted to do and be, and that's what I've been looking for. And I didn't have a name for it until then, but then I realized that's what it was. But yeah, so that happened, and worked there for, I think, worked in San Francisco for about a year or so, and then I wanted to do something different. There was always this bug in my head about working in a startup that I've had again, all of this straight out of college. So this is the only experience I'd had. So I was very concerned about if I'm limiting myself to just this experience and my worldview is limited to how this org, which was extremely nice to me, is that the right thing, and so on. So I wanted to come back, work in a startup. So left my visa and went back to India, worked in a startup for about few months, like 4-5 months or so, which was okay. I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't necessarily what I was hoping for, and I wanted to make a change and whatnot. But that's when Microsoft reached out. Someone from Microsoft, out of the blue, got into my Gmail and said, "Hey, we noticed your LinkedIn. Do you want to talk?" And I did. And amazing set of leaders in Microsoft. Spoke to them and got super excited. Got flown out to like Hyderabad, which is where Microsoft HQ in India is located. So went there, did my interview. It all went great. By the night, like by the time I was sitting in the airport trying to come back to Bangalore, my home, I got the news that I got it. And I had to have this hard conversation. Yeah.
It doesn't typically go that fast, by the way.
I know, exactly. I must have had like a good relationship with the recruiter or something, because he gave me like a personal call on my number saying, "Hey, I have some good news. Keep it to yourself because it's not official yet, but I can see that you got it, like on the thing, on the site and whatnot." So got it. And then I had to have this hard conversation with the CPO of the startup saying, "Remember, I've always been telling you that I love Microsoft. I got an offer, so I'm going to go." And he was like, "Do you?" Throughout, I think the one common element I've had through my career is amazing leaders who've always recognized what I've wanted to do and been supportive. So yeah, he said go, which took that guilt off a little bit, I guess. But that's how Microsoft happened. Long story. Took about way too long, but yeah, that's my story.
No, that's actually kind of interesting for sure. So really cool as well. So cool to hear the transitions. And also now, if you have any tips for anybody how to make their LinkedIn profile look good, you should probably share them. So if that one was the trick. So
I would say put your heart into it. You'll see my resume, my LinkedIn, maybe oversharing a little bit. I have this column in my resume which says my superpowers, and that's literally what I consider are my superpowers and so on. So if you reflect in your LinkedIn, and I think most of us are great personalities, most of us are nice people that people would want to talk to and so on. If that reflects, I think people will reach out. That's why don't make it like a robo wrote your resume and so on. So yeah.
And it's really not about promoting every single thing and being the best of the world. No, that's not what it is. So it's the positive signs and sharing enough details for sure. Now, as part of then transitioning on Microsoft, can you talk about a bit on it kind of out of curiosity for me, any differences between the Azure DevOps and ODSP? So any kind of ODSP referring to OneDrive SharePoint. So because I'm actually there, and we're in the same team, by the way, with Suta, so for those who do not know. So, but what's kind of the differences between the organization? Because that's the two main different side of the engineering.
Yeah, I think the one big thing I'll say is in Azure DevOps, which is a good thing, we use a whole lot of Azure DevOps processes, which means a sprint is a sprint. Like sprint is 2 weeks. Everything goes into the Kanban board or whatever type of board you're using for your Agile. There's a sprint meeting every single day. There's a sprint planning on day one of the sprint. sprint grooming sessions, all of those things and so on. I do think in ODSP, it's a little bit more ad hoc. It's almost like, hey, we know what's coming up, and here's a green light review doc that gets sent out at any time, and that goes through and gets picked up, and we do like a planning session, I think quarterly or semester planning and so on. So I think that's one big transition that I had to get my head around, that even now, I think I write all my specs into epics and features and all of those.
That's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing there.
I don't think anyone reads it. Everyone's like, yeah, all of this is good. Can you put it into your doc and send it to me? So, yeah, I think that's one big change. Culturally, something that was surprising for me, Microsoft versus outside, was just how transparent the leadership has been. I think ODSP is so much more transparent than any other org I've ever seen, just about how almost vulnerable the leadership team is, and how it's all us figuring it out together, and you have a voice and you have an opinion, and you can reach out to like whoever, your CVP, and tell them that this is your opinion and you'll be heard. And yeah, I've just reached out to CVPs like from India and said, hey, I saw that you're available for lunch. Do you want to like do a virtual lunch and stuff like that? So yeah, that is very different. I don't think I don't know enough, but it's surprising for me that it's that approachable and that transparent, and which is awesome.
Cool.
It is, right? And I guess another thing is that, like, I've been around for a bit over a year at Microsoft. It's like I'm yet to hear my first no. Like when you ask somebody for help or advice or whatever, it's like I'm yet to hear my first no.
Yeah.
And that aspect of it, I think that resonates a lot with what you said about reaching out to somebody for lunch. It's like somebody you don't know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't met like our CEO yet, but I'm pretty sure I can do that. Like if I wanted to, right? Be in the right place and so on. Not ping him on Teams. I hope no one pings him on Teams. But,
but that is exactly the trick, right? Because everybody thinks that everybody else does that. No one does, and then he is there by himself. Like no one's just asking me, you know?
Yeah. So...
Yeah, exactly, right. And then you are the only person. Like, yes, finally, sure, let's meet.
Maybe today is a good day to ping Satya then. Let's see.
Good. Now, can you Suta also talk about it? You've been around in San Francisco, moving back to India, and then moving to Redmond now. What's the cultural impact? So, any kind of cultural shocks related on the country level? Because when people are kind of planning to move, there's always the fear of, can this be done? Is there a lot of things to be taken care of? Is it hard?
Yeah, I had very little strings attached, so I basically packed my bags and moved both times. But the one big thing I noticed both in my first time and now is just how open the career conversations are. Early in my career, I've had people pull me aside and say that, hey, don't speak so much about growth, like about your growth, right? Promo was almost a taboo word. Saying that I want to work in another country was a taboo word and whatnot. Of course, I still had amazing leaders, but that was almost the sentiment. And that's how, like early in career, just getting into corporate life, that's what is put in your head, right? You know nothing, and people around you are making you, molding you into something. And this is what went into my mind. And I still feel somehow I have those restrictions and limitations around, can I talk about my career? Can I talk about what I want and say that this is what has to happen? And I come here both the times, San Francisco and now in Seattle. I feel like early in careers are I want to go rule the world, and you as my leader is supposed to tell me how, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
but that's a good attitude for sure, and the fact that people are encouraging that is really awesome, because there is no limitations. It's just a matter of what do you want to do and how much you're willing to work for it in real world.
Yeah.
Now,
well, but I guess maybe also another part to it is like, in the past, I worked at companies that were like nowhere near close at Microsoft, like the size, right? And for some reason, like when I would leave the job, I always had this feeling of a guilt, like I'm leaving you, like I'm going to do something else. Whereas here at Microsoft, like you see people moving around a lot. Like some people change exactly, and everybody's like, yeah, cool. Like as you said, like you do you. Like there's no like people even encourage like, find whatever makes you tick and go do that. And when anything would change, find another thing that makes you tick now and do that, right? So it's like a totally opposite. And if you're not used to that, you're looking like, hey, am I allowed to talk about me? Is that okay? Like, can I move? Like, yeah, sure. Like, definitely do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the sense of you getting happiness from work is I think prevalent right now everywhere. I wouldn't say it's a very American concept or whatever, but I can see that people want you to feel happy and energized coming into work, and it's not just something that you do for money, and it's something that it's a career, and you want to feel proud of what you're putting together for end of your life and whatnot. So yeah.
That's good. Now we just got a 5-minute reminder on the Teams, and thank you Teams for that. That is actually a great feature. Now there's 2 questions what I wanted to ask. So first of all, now that we talk about your career ambitions, kind of a bit briefly, can you talk about what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis? So what do you do right now, and then how we're going to evolve that to be the best thing in the world?
She's a guest on a podcast.
Oh, that's
right
true.
Now.
Thank you, Waldek. Thanks for clarifying that. That is the right now moment.
That's just my side hustle, being like a celebrity and whatnot. But
there you
go. Let me speak about that. So I'm a product manager. What that means is I think part of my time is spent talking to customers. This can be internal or external customers, and focused on a specific problem area. So I'm focused on how do we build automations and visualizations for SharePoint capabilities, which will make SharePoint capabilities like lists, libraries, pages, etc., more useful for our customers. So part of it is about identifying the problem within the problem space that I have by talking to customers and looking at competition, looking at where the market is heading, futuristic thinking of what might actually come in, and should we be doing RPA, like whatever, right? Think about all of those things. Part of my time is about solving for existing problems that have been identified. So say we've found that approval processes are extremely difficult to build. So how do I actually solve for it? Solve for the process. What can lists do? What can libraries do? How is it different from a list and a library? What other capabilities exist within Microsoft, and how can we bring this together instead of every team within Microsoft going and building a feature on their own and so on. So a whole lot of partnerships and how do we bring these solutions together. Part of my time is also working with the engineers, which I absolutely love doing because I was an engineer and whatnot. So it's about, hey, this is the solution we have. And of course, designers. So this is the solution we have. How do we bring the best experience and which of course solves all of the functionality, which has been prioritized and all of those things put in the roadmap and all of that. So how do we work with designers and engineers to build this capability, for end to end, and how do we get it to our customers? There's a little bit of talking to like PMMs and marketing it and all of that, but I think that's lesser than everything else that I do, but solving problems and changing the world is what I do. But
that is actually a good way of thinking. There's changing the world positive. Yeah. So that's a great description on the PM role. So what do we do? We change the world for positive.
Yes.
So.
100% all the time. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I think there are some very, very exciting features that I've been told I'm not allowed to speak a lot, which is coming up, which is coming up into OneDrive and SharePoint, specifically in the automation and visualization domain on lists, libraries, and so on. So you'll all be kept posted on when we are ready to share them. So yeah.
Absolutely. And then the final question, there would be so much to talk about, actually. So much to actually asking questions, but also you're a woman in IT, and that's one topic which we always want to touch and have a discussion on. Can you talk about, from your perspective, what has helped you and kind of how the IT world or industry should be evolving itself to make it easier for other women? Because of course we want to have a 50-50 women and men in this industry. It makes no sense that we wouldn't. So any thoughts on that?
I mean, I have 90 seconds left, but I don't think that can cover it. But let's try. So when I joined early in career, I recognized I come from a place of privilege. So I was raised by a strong, independent, single woman, where you earning and you being the most successful means that you win the bread, for your family, and being successful is just natural. You have to do it. You have to get into tech, or you have to get into whatever you want. Doesn't matter whether it's tech or not, but do what you love and be good at it and work hard and all of those things. So early in career, I figured that, hey, what women and I'll just treat me like I'm no different, right? Which is true, which is how it should be. But what I didn't realize as I grew and my worldview increased and expanded and whatnot, I realized that when I looked up to women leaders, they had very much fewer leaders to look up to around certain types of problems or certain types of things that were limiting them. For example, if I want to think about being a great product manager, I have a funnel of product managers that I can look up to in different stages and say, oh, I see what this person did. I can learn from them and I can do that. But as women leaders, there were a lot less people that you could look at and look at the journey that they went to and say that, okay, that's what I want to do. And that's how this is how I could solve this problem and so on. So I realized that this amount of mentorship or amount of people, like a network that you can connect to, is much, much lesser for at least women leaders. I know that's increasing now, which is what it should be and whatnot. But yeah, that's one thing. So the one thing that I tell folks, and I think this should become cultural, is constantly look for and find people you look up to. It doesn't have to be one person. I look up to the way Vesa conducts all of his meetings, and you right there. But so it doesn't have to be one person. It doesn't have to be an ideal person, because no one's perfect. Even if you're looking up to Elon Musk, he has his flaws, right? So, and it doesn't have to be a man or a woman. Just find portions of things that's perfect in someone and reach out to them and say, hey, I think you do such a great job in this. Just appreciate them. When the time comes that you have to do something similar, you say, hey, I think you do a great job in this. I'm going to do it. Do you want to give me any tips? Do you have any tips for me and whatnot? So building that network should become almost cultural for me. No one told this to me when I was starting off in my career. They just say network. Which almost felt like a taboo word. What do you mean by network? Drinks after work? Is that what it means and whatnot? But network basically means people you can learn from, at least for me. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'll say for anyone who's coming into tech, especially women. Find people that you think does something really well. Go talk to them, say hi. No one's going to say no, to the point that you were making, Waldek. Very few people in the industry say no for anything. Actually, if you tell them that you need advice, they'll be happy to provide that. So I think that's that. I just say one more thing. Learn to learn. Train your brain to learn, because the biggest skill set that you can have is not coding. It's not speccing, it's not designing, it's this ability to learn, according to me, because the industry is changing. Say you want to become an actor tomorrow, you can do it as long as you have the ability to learn to become one, right? So yeah, that's the other thing. And the third thing, I'm sorry,
no
the
worries,
value
no
of
rush.
your
No.
yeah. I think this is super important for me. My husband, even today, Krish, he values me, like as in, he thinks that the value of my opinion and how much I should be paid, etc., is higher than what I put for my opinion and how much I'm worth, and like when I'm negotiating in a job and so on. So he'd be like, "You should be paid X." I'll be like, "I think I should only be paid X divided by 2." I think this is very, very prevalent in women. Just know the value of your opinion, and lean in, right? Like ask for what you deserve, and if you truly deserve it, I think people will be more than happy to give it. But you have to ask. So yeah, that's one thing.
Courage. And yes, absolutely. That's really good. Really, really good. Thank you, Sudha, on that one. And it would be so cool to continue this discussion. We'll get you back on the show.
Next time.
You back on the show next time for another one. For a few months or whatever. We'll see whenever the new features are out. We can talk about the new features as well.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for joining. Really awesome discussion. And
Thank you so much for having me.
More about you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great to
be here. It was so much fun. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Cool. So thank you, Sudha, one more time, and probably fifth time as we're thanking you. But really, really cool discussion, and it's and I would say that it's interesting always to hear about the let's say cultural differences as you're moving from India to US or any other country and the countries, because there's a lot of moving across the countries and moving based on your career and everything else. It's not just about technology, it's also about what's actually the new rules and laws and things what you need to follow and all of that extra hassle. So, which is one thing when I'm trying to avoid the situation where I'm forced to move.
This is exactly why you will not move. There you go.
Exactly.
Problem solved.
Exactly. These are the options. But let's jump on the articles of this week. So let me share my screen. And start with the articles from Microsoft side of the house, and then moving on to the community side. And I guess we have one video this time, on which we will go through as well. Now, first of all, we had a cool blog post in the Microsoft Teams platform Microsoft Teams blog related on how we have improved the Microsoft Teams performance and reduced the power consumption in meetings by up to 50%. And I think actually this is kind of an interesting reminder on the amount of electricity and amount of the resources of the world as part of the work what we do. So these kind of optimizations are actually really, really, really cool, because then we're more cost efficient, more energy free, more eco-friendly. And it's one of those things where, why didn't you actually immediately do that? Well, again, these things are not super easy. So you need to ship things, and then you need to optimize, and then all of that stuff. But it's really cool to see the improvements related on settings. And maybe at some point, who knows, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe we should have a lower quality settings in Teams, which you can select to then reduce the amount of energy being used in the CPU.
Oh, we already do that. Turn off video.
Yes, we could actually plug the video. That's a fair point. Good point. Good point. But even on the video stream, you would be able to control the quality of the stream, and then that reduces the required performance and all of that. So interesting perspective, those absolutely. So it's kind of a really, really important piece of nowadays in the company's work that they take these kind of things into account. So at least there's an option to optimize things. But really cool. 50% improvement. That's a significant number. Now, we also had a new learning module. You want to talk about this one a bit, Waldek?
Correct. So we launched the other day a new learn module that explains how you can build meeting apps for Microsoft Teams, right? So a while back, we launched the ability to show apps along a meeting. So you don't need to switch back and forth between meeting and an app, but instead you can have the meeting embedded already as a part of the meeting experience. And the module that we have launched basically explains what you can do, how do you go about it, what are the prerequisites, and shows exercises that include a hands-on experience, how you can build these apps. So we would definitely encourage you to give it a try, test drive it, and we'd love to hear, what do you think about it? What ideas you have? What would you like to build? Is there anything missing? Is there anything that you would like to be able to do more? Let us know.
Yeah. And this is actually, so it's really cool to have a 1 hour and 4 minutes, relatively short time allocation to understand the basics. And that's actually the beauty of a lot of these modules, that they're not like you have to do 8 hours of work. No. Just concentrate 1 hour, and then you are already well ahead of understanding the basic of the functionality, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Now, I actually had a blog post in the SharePoint blog related on the most used SharePoint framework solutions in the store. It's in January 2022, and we're basically listing the most widely used EasyGraph widgets have been the most widely used now for many, many months. This kind of a bit of a confusing piece, because the SharePoint store is not just about SharePoint, it's also about Viva Connection. But until we will get all of this sorted out in the internal alignment, for now you can acquire Viva Connection mobile and desktop experiences also from a SharePoint store. So, but a lot of innovation, a lot of new features coming up on that side as well. So really cool to see the innovation in there. Now let's actually then do this graph one first. So from Brian.
Yes, we have a new article from Ryan from the Graph CPX team, which is the team that closely engages with some of the biggest customers who use the Microsoft Graph and who build on Microsoft 365. And in his article, Brian explains how you can use Microsoft Search to query, for example, only for files or folders, right? So he explains how you can build the query to basically narrow down or control the results that you will get.
There's some familiar things here, like I can recognize that immediately because of the historical.
It's the KQL, the keyword query language, I guess. Yeah. It's the same format, yeah.
Yeah, and the 0x0101. So it is the document like which is being defined over there, but that has a really long, decades-long, let's say.
Oh yeah, with the
coding.
whole inheritance of content types. Yeah, exactly. In SharePoint. Yes.
But luckily, we don't need to talk about those things anymore that much. So thank God, some things are evolving. Yes, we did. Yes, once again, we need to stop doing that. Now, on the modern side of the house, there's a SharePoint framework 1.14. Release candidate is out from last week as well, with updates to Viva Connection, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint. Of course, the main focus area on the SharePoint framework for sure is in Viva Connection, and of course in Microsoft Teams, and not forgetting about SharePoint, because SharePoint is a big piece of behind of the scenes services, and there's a lot of customers who are still building portals and absolutely using portals, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. But as the new, let's say, shiny ones on Viva Connection and Microsoft Teams, there's obviously a lot of investments on that side as well. Maybe one thing to call out, we talked about this one in the past as well, but really cool things related on Viva mobile experiences is that we are introducing now the local-based APIs and all of native APIs for the mobile. So that means that you can then start targeting content and functionalities and features inside of the adaptive card extensions with SPFX using the location. So.
That's
you can,
cool.
For example, a simple example, of course, not super, let's say, business oriented, but based on your location, you can detect the office and then show the next lunch or the lunch menu, which is quite typical request for people to know what is on the lunch menu in the restaurant today in the office. So, but automatically doing the detection.
Thing. Yeah, and I don't know if it goes as far that it can, like, imagine that you are in an office building and it can tell on which floor you are, like, because like it would be easy thing to tell the wing, like west or north or whatever, and then allow you to, for example, pick a seat based on that. But it can also see how high you are, floor 2, 3, 4, and 5. that would be even better, right?
I guess that comes back on the native mobile location information which the devices are providing for us. And I guess coming back on a historical thing, it wasn't like a few years back, like 5 years ago, whenever it was Google was doing the Google Map pictures and everything else, mapping on the streets, and then they were scanning the Wi-Fi networks, right? Because that was precisely for that reason, so that they can actually then more precisely allocate where you are from a location perspective. Now, I don't know about the flooring again still, but
elevation, yeah.
So it's an interesting thing.
If you are in this space that many meters above the level of the sea or whatever, then you need to be at floor X.
Yeah,
given the floors that,
That's true. Yeah. But anyway, so cool.
It is an interesting case, yes.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, the next one is for client secret expiration.
Exactly. So when you build apps, like if your app needs app-only access, you have two ways to go about it. You either attach to it a certificate or a secret. And in the past, secret was a really great way, convenient way, because you could set it to a never expiring value, right? Yeah. So you could say like, yes, that thing will never expire. It will work forever. Now, the problem is that if somebody would go around it, like they would get access and it would never expire. Yeah. Which is why in April 2021 at Microsoft, we said like, no, that will no longer be an option. And now when you create a secret, it can be a maximum of 2 years, right? So that will be basically the longest possible value for you to create a secret. So that's something for you to take into account when you build these apps.
Makes perfect sense. And I guess the one thing what we as an enterprise have to learn to do is to deal with the expiration. So it's like the SSL certification expires, and that just has to be a process of doing this stuff and put it in the whatever reminders and then on somebody's email or notification that you need to go and renew.
And then that person leaves the company and who gets the reminder.
Exactly. That's a classic, super classic challenge for sure. So did you actually check the certification of your SSL? What, where, who? What?
Yeah, DNS, expiring certs, expiring secrets. There will be another one. Like 3 reasons why things break.
Yep, exactly. Now, Ika Boss had a good blog post, and there's a new weekly series going live on 8 a.m. Pacific time on every single Tuesday, which is a learn from the community. And this one was React App and an Azure Q&A bot, the centralized learning resources. And I guess it was London, University of College London, basically where they're collecting the information more easily available for the students. And they have a nice, I guess it was a 1-hour video where they walk through the solution and its advantages and technologies and learnings and all of that stuff. So really, really cool discussion for sure, and great way of learning the art of possible in the platform. So really great stuff. Next one in the community blog side.
Exactly. So it's a community blog from Tomasz, and it's about how you can show and hide content in adaptive cards. So maybe you didn't know, but adaptive cards are this great way to have predefined UI that works great across mobile, desktop, different experiences, where you don't need to worry about CSS and making it pixel perfect and ensuring that it works. Like, it just works. What is also great is that apparently you have the option to control when you show things. So it's not just a flat UI that is always the same. You can adapt it to different interactions on a screen to choose when which elements will be visible to user. And this article goes exactly about that, right? So it explains you what different options you have, how do you go about it, and how you can tweak and choose which elements to show when.
Really, really good stuff from Thomas. And then we had another blog post on the community side from Damian Burt, comparing 2 arrays without an apply to each. So basically, how do we do Power Automate comparison of 2 arrays and then dealing with those array outputs and then working forward on that. So good tips and guidance on how I would be actually doing that kind of a logistics and mapping between the arrays and then moving forward on execution. So thank you, Damian, on that one. Then we have something from Mark Anderson.
Yes, we have a new article from Mark Anderson, our community MVP, about a use case that they had the other day where they wanted to change the URL of a site, SharePoint site, attached to a Teams team. And what they saw first is that the URL broke. Like they couldn't, in Teams, they couldn't see any files, and they couldn't also find any way to really do anything about it. But then apparently over time, the URL would heal itself. So they didn't need to do anything. Teams would start showing files eventually, right? So apparently there's some job going on in the background in that many minutes or hours, right? That is going to adjust it by itself. And that isn't unusual case, right? Because like as your collaboration environment evolves, you might want to rename things to make them easier to find, more logical to follow. And sure, like you can make an argument that, well, who cares about URLs? Well, some people do. And in that case, you want it to correspond to the thing you're seeing on a screen. And in that case, when you change it, apparently you don't need to worry about people not being able to find the files. They will be able to do it eventually by itself.
Just takes time. So it is actually cool to have self-healing features and functionality. So safety net behind of the scenes, which is detecting those things and fixing things. So like it should be actually. So if we can adjust something from an API perspective, you should not be able to break your environment because that's just wrong. So now, we also had a article from API, which migrate planner plans to list using the CLI for Microsoft 365. So CLI Microsoft 365 to connect to the planner and then migrate that to be part of a Microsoft list, so which is nowadays capable of doing quite magical things. So really, really cool functionalities and experiences across the JSON level extensibility, which we'll see a great sample, by the way, a bit later on the coverage. But API talks about moving existing planner tasks then to the list for tracking, because why not? That is certainly an option as well. So, and a big script to be embedded here as well. But thank you, API, on that one. Now, some SharePoints.
Yes. Do we have an article from Peter Veenstra about how you can create a custom connector in Power Platform, right? And the first, like what is a connector? A connector gives you the ability to connect your Power App or a flow to an API and do it in a convenient way rather than trying to do an HTTP call to get a request and then get a JSON blob and need to operate on that, right? So a connector makes it easier because it gives you access to objects and it also does auth, right? And Peter goes through the different steps, what is involved, how do you go about it, and so forth and so on. So if you need to connect to an API that doesn't have a connector, this article is a great place to start and learn more about it.
Absolutely, and he's referencing also the Independent Publisher Program, which is a great program run by Natalie. And basically, idea here is that you are able to then submit your samples to Power Platform as an independent publisher provider. So your API or your connectors can be exposed in the Power Platform UX if the customers are choosing to show those options available. And that's actually really, really cool. So the open source community provided connectors are natively exposed as part of the Microsoft product, which is absolutely brilliant. Good. Then we had a blog post from Leon Armstrong related on SharePoint syntax. So pre-built and pre-trained models now available for invoices and recipients. So SharePoint syntaxes are artificial intelligence for document management. So it's basically advanced content management services, for example, for detecting content and detecting information like, for example, the fields and content around the invoices. And there's some predefined content and rules related, for example, invoices and recipients to be able to then start from, and then you can start teaching the artificial intelligence based on your country and your receipts and your invoices, how to detect the relevant information. But really, really cool stuff. Thank you, Leon, on that. Then we have something really cool also, which is actually happening later today as we're recording this on 14th of February.
Exactly. So we are expecting a new major version of PnP JS. And if you don't know what it is, PnP JS is probably the most popular Fluent API style JavaScript SDK for SharePoint APIs.
Yep.
Right? You can use it in Node projects. You can use it in TypeScript apps, JavaScript web apps, anything JavaScript related. that API, that SDK is the way to go to connect to SharePoint APIs. And it makes it really super easy. And in V3, we will see some really cool improvements. So stay tuned for the release and announcement.
Yeah, and it's super optimized as well, the 3.0 version. So you can really minimize the package sizes and all of that. And I'm just realizing this one in here, which is pretty cool. So hashtag Vesa. See?
Yeah,
that's pretty random.
Yeah. Hashtag Steve.
Just to be clear, I do not follow up on hashtag Vesa in Twitter. Now, we also had from Fabio, we had a adaptive card host new control for the PnP SPFX controls React package. And this is an open source package where basically there's a massive amount of individual controls for React experiences. And this is really cool implementation. So basically, you can start using any adaptive card definitions to render your UX, and it automatically detects and recognizes also the themes, and if it's in themes, and then adjust the theming and experiences based on that. So really cool experiences. So you don't have to worry about the UX. You just define, this is the UX what I want you to render, and then the control takes care of it using adaptive card definition. So really cool stuff. Cool. And awesome to see the step forward in here. Now we're looking into doing something similar sooner or later in the product natively. Who knows? It might be actually even based on this thinking in here. So anyway, interesting. Now then we have this one related on list formatting and what can be done in Microsoft Lists, which is
exactly. So looking just at the screen, right? So currently on the screen, we're showing animated GIF of the Wordle-like game, right? And if you haven't heard that, Wordle is the game where you are being asked to guess a 5-letter word, and then the game tells you if you found the letter in the right place, if you found a letter but on the wrong place, and so forth and so on. And here we're looking at an example that looks just like the game, but is built using JSON on top of SharePoint list, which is like, how on earth do you even go about how does that work? How do you? It's a list, and then it just like you have all the interaction, the same hints, the same experience, guesses, and on top of a list. Like, that is insane.
Now I can imagine if you have a look on the JSON file in here that it's not.
Oh yeah, of
short.
course. It's on the line 10. Like you can see exactly where it's like no.
Yeah, it's.
We're looking at how many lines of code, like
let's see how this goes. The 792 lines. Yeah. So, but it's no code.
Well, yes, you're right, because there's no way for you to put a breakpoint on it. You're right.
Correct. If that's the definition of code, but it's
well, apparently.
Wow. But anyway, so super cool stuff.
It is really cool.
Techuan. It's just and Techuan Kawahara is basically showing all of the, let's say, really the art of possible and pushing the lists to a completely new level. Yeah. So thank you, Techuan. Really cool stuff and awesome examples. And then as the final post or a video, we had the Microsoft from Paolo. So episode 193 in his Biasus Tech Bites, which is creating OneNote pages with Microsoft Graph. So how do we do that? Classic scenario, how would I actually enable this kind of things? And it's great to have a 5-minute video showing how to get started on actually creating then the OneNote, the actual OneNote, what is it called? OneNote. Notebook, exactly, and then pages inside of it and all of that. So really cool stuff. Thank you, Paolo, on that one. Cool. That's it for this week.
That is it.
That is it. I guess we did the what's going to happen this week discussion already with Suta during that interview, but I guess that's it for now then. Let's close up for this week, and we'll come up with the next PnP Weekly within a week. Please remember hashtag PnP Weekly in the Twitter if you are in Twitter and pushing out updates there. That will help us on detecting cool articles so we can cover them in this show. But other than that, thank you, Waldek, for joining once again.
Thank you, Vesa.
Good to have you here. So, and thanks you,
I'm here the
Suta.
whole week.
And thanks you, Suta, for joining us today. So thanks, everybody. And please keep the feedback coming. If there are specific people you would like to see in this show, let us know, and we'll see what we can do with that. So thanks, everybody. We'll be back in a week. Bye-bye.
Bye.